Do you ever feel like there just isn't enough time for everything? In today's video, I'll share my time management system for building a creator business while working a full-time job, so you can finally gain control over your schedule. I understand this struggle deeply. I work full-time, I play in a rock and roll band, and I create weekly YouTube videos. I know how hard it is to balance everything. At times, it's even felt impossible. But after a couple run-ins with burnout and a lot of trial and error, I've learned how to create enough time to stay consistent as a creator for over a year now. The reason it's so important to learn time management skills is because time is a non-renewable resource. Unlike money or food, we can't make more of it. And whether we like it or not, it ticks away, oblivious to the desires of us mere mortals trying to manage it. If you have any ambitions to do more with your life than work a 9-to-5 job until retirement, then you need to learn how to manage your time effectively. The first question we need to answer is, how much time does being a creator require? The answer to this question is going to be different for everyone depending on their goals, but for me, it's about 2 hours of focused work a day during the work week. That's about 10 hours total. There's been a lot of research showing that we can only do about 2 to 4 hours of deep creative work a day before our minds get fatigued. And this is a relief for creatives who feel like they aren't working enough on their craft. It gives us permission to not obsess over maximizing time spent doing creative work. Since 4 hours is simply off the tables during the work week, I aim for 2. And usually on my days off, I'll spend another 2 to 4 hours each day working on writing, video editing, and building my systems, bringing my total to the week to around 14 to 20 hours a week. It's a part-time job, and you've got to treat it as such if you want to be consistent with your progress. Like any other job, I have a schedule for when the work happens and set goals for the work sessions. I impose deadlines for projects, create systems for efficiency, and try to avoid distractions and stay focused. So right now you're probably thinking, cool story, where exactly am I supposed to find these 2 hours in my day? I'm too busy right now. All this is possible for me thanks to a time-tested productivity technique called time blocking. It's a straightforward technique that can be done with pen and paper or any calendar app. Like the name implies, you literally block out time for when you do certain tasks. The reason this method is so effective is because it cuts right through our internal bullshitting systems. I don't have time is rarely a valid excuse once you see your schedule plotted onto a piece of paper. Often, you will see plenty of hours floating around waiting to be filled with creative work. It also forces us to confront the reality of our ambition. Sometimes we really don't have time because we're just taking on too much without considering the reality that the day only contains so many waking hours. And the truth is, trade-offs must be made to reach your goals. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. David Allen. Every time I've tried to do it all without being realistic about my time, I got stressed, overwhelmed, and imploded into a fit of anxiety. Now, I prioritize, make a plan, and execute. This gives me ultimate control over my time, energy, and emotions. Everything feels organized. I'll show you how time blocking looks for the average workday so you can see for yourself. We're going to pretend you work a 9-to-5 to simplify it, but the principles work for any schedule. We each have 24 hours in a day, only 16 of them we're awake for. Every workday, another 8 hours gets filled, but realistically, it's more like 10 hours a day. This accounts for the time spent getting ready and commuting. For those who get to work from home, congrats. You just won back 2 hours of your day. So this leaves us with 6 hours a day. But wait, don't forget to account for eating dinner, doing any minor errands or chores, and any other obligations you might have. Let's just say those account for another 2 hours, leaving us with 4 free hours on any given workday. That's it. For most people, this means you've got about 2 free hours first thing in the morning and 2 free hours after work. But this brings up one of the most common objections people have, which is, I'm just too drained after work. And who's to blame them? Work is draining, and the last thing most people feel inspired to do after a long day is the struggle to write for 2 hours. It's hard, I get it. This is where you've got to understand yourself and how you work best. For me, waking up and going straight to the creative work for 2 hours is how I thrive. I feel alert and creative, and I get to do it with a cup of coffee. What's not to like? But some people just despise being awake in the morning, and for those people, maybe your creative work block should come at night. To each their own. All I know is I'm drained after work, and I don't want to write. Creative work is so much harder after a long day, and I find it more effective to do more admin style tasks at this time, things like responding to emails, planning my week, or organizing my notes. Stuff that doesn't require my full presence, because I can't guarantee it'll be there at the end of the day. I know for a fact I'll be rested and ready to go in the mornings, and that's why I schedule my 2-hour creative blocks during that time. It's also important to note that after your creative work is done, there are only 2 free hours left in the day, and that's not a whole lot. This is where some of the trade-offs in your life have to be made. Is the simple pleasure of scrolling Instagram worth it, or would that time be better spent working out? Do you spend time with your friends and family, or do you spend it playing video games? These are all serious questions you have to ask yourself because burying your head in the sand won't solve it. Time is limited and it's up to you to invest it wisely. But the beauty of time blocking is it gives you an objective bird's eye view of what you're working with, gives you perspective, and forces you to confront the reality of your situation. Now, a lot of people think it's robotic and soulless to plan out your weeks like this, and I used to be one of those people. But a lot of people are also not reaching their goals and complaining about not having enough time. I feel like time blocking is a necessary evil to get a grasp on your situation so you can start to make real progress. But don't worry, you don't have to time block forever. You can just try it out for a couple weeks to get a grip on your schedule. And once you've settled into a routine, you can be less rigid. It's a tool for gaining control over your focus and attention so that you can be sure it's directed at the right things. The most important thing you could do as a creator is protect your 2-hour creative window like a mama bear protecting her cubs. That 2 hours is your investment in your future. It's the daily brick you lay in the foundation of your creative empire. It's where all the magic happens, all the opportunity comes, and all the results you seek are crafted. Whatever it takes to defend that time. This is the mentality that'll keep you consistent. Now here's some tips to help you avoid some common mistakes that most people make when time blocking. The first is to plan for B tier you, not S tier. However long you think something is going to take, just double that number. That's how much time you probably end up needing. Humans are terrible at gauging how long things take because we're terrible at considering all the minor frustrations that go into it. You also don't know what your head state will be in the future. You might be sleepless, drained, and full of anxiety. Don't expect future you to be highly optimized and cranked with energy. Creative work is hard work. I wish writing was as easy as sitting down and pushing buttons, but we all know it's not. There are multiple drafts, lots of research, and plenty of scrap sections that sound good in the moment but turn out to be hot garbage. I will set an objective for the time block, such as finish the first draft, but I'm flexible with the results. Sometimes after 2 hours of pushing buttons, all I have is a couple paragraphs and I've got to be okay with that. The metric for success is staying focused and doing what I said I would for that time block. If I blocked out 2 hours to write, I better not be fiddling around with color palettes for a new design. And trust me, I still struggle with this, but it gets easier to stay focused the more you do it. The next tip is to don't overplan. You've got to leave some room for spontaneity. Sometimes it's just going to be a beautiful day outside, and you can't miss the opportunity to go to the beach with your friends. Give yourself a little wiggle room to make adjustments when plans change, but be careful how often you do this. You want to develop the discipline muscle, and sometimes that requires sitting with a little FOMO every once in a while. And when you have goals, there are always going to be trade-offs. Don't lose sight of what you're trying to achieve for a little distraction in the moment. Goals frame everything. Now, the only question left to answer is what should you work on during your creative work blocks? And the answer to this question is completely dependent on your goals, which is why it's so important to actually set goals. If your goal is to publish a book, then your creative work block is going to look a lot different than a photographer trying to put together a professional portfolio. I spend 2 of my creative work blocks on ideation, research, and outlining my newsletter. I spend another 2 on writing the newsletter. Then I take that newsletter and use it as my YouTube video script. And that leaves me with 3 creative work blocks to film, edit, and publish the video. That's in line with my goal of making 100 YouTube videos. This split ensures I'm working towards that goal and not on things that seem fun or easy to do in the moment. So long as I stay focused for those 2 hours each day, I will get the video done on time. The most important thing you can do is make sure you're spending your time focused on the right things. If you want to check out my system for setting goals and prioritizing the most important tasks to reach them, you can watch right over here. Have a creative week.